Welcome to the Living Out podcast, helping people, churches, and society talk about faith and sexuality.
Hello, and welcome back to the Living Out podcast. You're joining us for our series on friendship. Friendship is something that we really value at Living Out as a team. It's one of the things that makes the single life plausible, makes it good. And so we wanted to dedicate an entire podcast series to talking about that, talking about what friendship is, why it matters, how we can do it well, all those sorts of things. Today, we're going to be talking about intimacy in friendship. And to help me with that conversation, I'm joined by Andrew Bunt. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Ashley Hull.
Full name. Oh, gosh. I'm also joined by Katherine Brown. Katherine has joined us before on the podcast in our Different Stories series. She features in our new youth series, Kaleidoscope. Do check that out. And it's just generally a delight. So hello, Katherine. Lovely to have you in the virtual room.
Oh, thanks for having me. Hello, Ashley and Andrew.
So I will ask you a sillier question in a minute, but Katherine, just wanted to get a bit of kind of who you are, what you do, sort of thing. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I work for an organisation called the Evangelical Alliance. I'm involved in all things young adults. How do we share the gospel with young people? How do we share the gospel in the culture today? And have just released a series all about sexuality for adult small groups, looking at the cultural stories for sex and relationships, the big picture of the God story. And then I share my own story and journey with same-sex attraction as well.
It looks really good. It's so new that I haven't yet been able to watch all of it, but I'm really excited to do that. Katherine, where can people access that if they want to check it out?
If you go on the Evangelical Alliance website, it's under resources. It's our top resource at the moment. It's called Relationships Matter. And it's hot off the press. So there we go. Run there, people.
Well, if you stop listening now because you need to go check that out, we understand. But for those people who are going to stick with us, I will ask my sillier question. So we're talking all about friendship this series. I love books and many fictional characters. So I'm going to ask you, if you could be friends with a fictional character, who would you choose? And I've not prepped either of you for this, so I will go first while you have a think. My go-to would be Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice, because I think she's hilarious and sassy and fun, and I feel like we'd have a lot of fun as friends. So that would be my pick. Andrew, are you ready?
Oh, well, I think you know what I'm going to say. I think it would have to be Galinda/Glinda, specifically Ariana Grande's version for the movie. I'm a little bit in love with her, and I do want her portraying Glinda to be my best friend, basically.
I'm very glad you said that.
She's so sweet.
Wow.
She's so sweet and funny.
She is delightful.
Okay.
For those who don't know, we're discussing the Wicked movie, which I have seen 5 times at the moment in cinema. Andrew, what are you up to?
10 times?
10 times that he's seen this film in cinema. It's great.
Only 8 of which
You
were in the
haven't
cinema,
watched
so,
it.
you know.
You go.
10.
10.
10 times,
times.
Andrew.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
It's been out 2 months. I mean, come on. You know.
It's a very good film. Let's move on, because otherwise we'll spend the next half hour just talking about Wicked. Katherine, have you got a fictional character you'd like to be friends?
Oh, I don't know. My mind's gone completely blank. I'm trying to think of the books that I've read recently. The only character that came to mind, well, when you said Glinda, I was like, no, I definitely prefer to be friends with Elphaba for sure. And yeah, Hermione was the first person that came to mind. I'd enjoy friendship with Hermione.
Fantastic choice.
Yes.
Would you be sat in the library with her researching things?
I think I'd probably just be like, can you explain this to me? And then I'd pretend that I was smart to everyone else around me. So maybe I just use her. That sounds bad, doesn't it?
It's a fantastic start.
Welcome to How to Do Friendship from Living Out.
So we've established so far in this series that friendship is important, that we are friends of God, and that we need to be friends with each other too. We've also talked a bit about how not all our friendships are going to look the same. So that's kind of the ground that we've covered. Today we're going to talk about intimacy, as I've said. What is it? Why should we go after it? How can we do that well in our friendships? So let's start with the what. And I'm going to come to Andrew and ask him to give us some kind of definition of intimacy. What is it we're actually talking about?
Well, I actually looked this up. Because we're doing an episode on intimacy, I thought, what actually is the definition of intimacy? It's quite boring. It's actually like kind of to be close, to be very familiar with. But I find a more helpful definition of intimacy when we talk about it in the context of something like friendship, is to talk about it's our tangible experience of love. So it's not just being loved, but actually how do we experience the fact and almost in a sense feel the fact that we are loved and there is genuine love in a relationship. And so when I think of intimacy in human relationships, in friendship, actually it's the element of the relationship where not only do we know we're loved, but there's kind of this, tangible, real, experienced reality of that.
Great. Katherine, maybe you could speak to just how we view intimacy in our culture, because often we can get quite confused about that. And maybe we view it only in the context of one kind of relationship. Could you say something about that?
Yeah, I'm sure even some people listening to this, Ashley, when you said the word intimacy, might have even got a bit like, oh, that's a bit awkward. Because in our culture, intimacy is so linked to sex. When we talk about having an intimate relationship, people would automatically think, oh, that means sex, like that's a sexual thing. And in our culture, that's what it does mean. But I do not think when we're talking about intimacy, I don't think that's a helpful way to actually view it, because we need intimacy in friendship, and that is not related to sex. But it's such a shame in our culture that we link any sort of closeness and love to something sexual when that it isn't actually the way that we love and show love. So that's how it's got confused in culture, and there's probably more to say. But
Well, that's a helpful start. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Can I do a shameless plug for a blog? I wrote a blog, which is on the Living Out website, called Have You Been Intimate with Anyone Recently? Which I said is a question I want my friends to ask me, or want people to ask me. Have you been intimate with anyone recently? And of course, my answer will be yes. In fact, I've been intimate with lots of people recently, which will shock and horrify them. But it reveals this fact of people instantly think, oh, this is a question about some kind of sexual accountability question. Are you saying sexually pure? When actually, we all need to have multiple intimate friendships in our lives. And so the blog is just exploring exactly what Katherine's been talking about, that we have this cultural confusion of intimacy equals sex, but then exploring the fact that we all actually have a need for intimacy, and that friendship is the context we can enjoy that.
Brilliant. So with that as kind of a primer, I want to kind of dig a bit deeper into it. Why? Why do we need intimacy in friendships? Would you say that's an important component of friendship, or something just that we need as human beings?
I think it's just part of our wiring by God, that we're made for human community. And I think you see that back in Genesis 2, that actually Adam needs human community as well as his perfect relationship with God. And that actually we are hardwired by God for a need for human connection. That actually, yes, our intimacy with God is different, and in a sense is of a greater, or the intimacy we can have with God is of a greater quality. But actually, we are also made for human community, and it's just a God-given good human need. And I think part of the reason for that actually is that we learn about God's love for us and intimacy with God through love for each other, intimacy with each other. And I think so often actually, some of the times I've most experienced God's love in my life has been mediated through people alongside me, got people who God has put in my life, and human experiences of loving intimacy have been a way that God has mediated his loving intimacy to me. So I think it's a God-given need, and part of the reason actually is to point us beyond itself, as we often talk about human relationships pointing beyond themselves, and to point actually to the love, the intimacy we can enjoy with God.
Yeah. Just picking up on the Genesis 2 thing that you pulled out there, Andrew, some people would read that and go, well, Adam was alone and God saw that wasn't good, and his solution was to give Adam a wife. His solution was marriage. But I think, as you've just drawn out, it's not just or primarily that God has given a wife. It's that God has given Adam a way to create human community and to enjoy a wider range of relationships. As married people, we need, I'm not a married person, as married people, you need more intimate relationships than just marriage, which, Katherine, as the married person in the room, I'm sort of assuming you agree with.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Be a bit awkward if I didn't, wouldn't it? Yeah, definitely. And I think even when we look at the life of Jesus and the disciples, Jesus probably could have done so much more if he'd just gone alone and like just traveled loads and didn't care about forming, relationships with anyone. But he didn't do that. He had a community around him. And for the disciples, some of those disciples were married. We hear about sick mother-in-laws and all of that, and yet there is a real brotherhood that's really important between the disciples, and a knowing of each other. Those long walks that they would have gone on together from place to place. There's a real knowledge of each other, and I think for me as a married person, I can't imagine life with like just John. I don't think that's the best for marriage either. I think we're made for community and wider community. The church is a family for a reason. In our culture, the nuclear family has become such a thing. Like it's just you and your partner, you and your castle, close the doors, keep everyone out. Where else the church is the complete opposite of that. It's okay, right? We're a married couple, but we're within this wider family community who are just as much family to us. Our doors are open. We want to welcome people in. And that I think is really, I would say, the only way for marriage to flourish as well, because you can't expect your spouse to be everything. And I think lots of people get into all sorts of issues when they put their spouse on that pedestal and say, you have to be the person that always makes me laugh, that always helps me when I'm sad, that always is this or that and that. And they just can't do that because they aren't Jesus. And we need the whole church. So yeah, friendship has been so key in my life when I was single, and then it's continued to be as a married person, just so vital.
Brilliant. What has intimacy looked like in those friendships for you, Katherine, both when you were single and when you're married? Maybe you could give us a couple of examples.
Yeah, to be honest, it hasn't really changed much from single to married. I think healthy friendship should be a place where you are able to share openly, share life, and like just invite people into every area of your life. Me and John had, thankfully, are on the same page with this. And when we were in the process of like being engaged towards marriage, this was one of the things that was a non-negotiable for both of us. We're like, we're not going to lose friends when we're married. Like, we don't want to be those people that disappear off the face of the planet because we've got married, because we know we need other people. And that's just been a blessing for us. So for both of us, we have friends that we will hang out with and talk to. We hang out with them together. We hang out apart. We do things together. We do things apart. John's got like friends that he speaks to who don't live where we live every week as accountability type people. And I've got girls in the local area I do that with. But to be honest, I don't think our friendships have changed that much, apart from hosting's a lot easier because we're in the same house rather than trying to work out, right, who's going where. We've got a base. So, yeah, intimate friendship is just people are involved in every area of our life and we share vulnerably. Yes, I would share with John, but there's also lots of friends that I would invite into the hard moments of life, the ups and downs of life.
Brilliant. Andrew, would that chime with your experience as a single person?
I think absolutely, yeah. I think I've for me, it's been learning to recognise and value the different forms of intimacy. I think Katherine has talked about a few there, things like conversational intimacy, actually, of just being open and honest to people and the ups and downs of life. And that really does help you to connect deeply with someone, opening your heart and opening your life to them. And I think kind of sharing life. And I remember a few years ago reading about the concept of domestic intimacy. I think it was Nate Collins, who's an American author, who talks about it. I don't know if it was original to him, which was, he said, kind of the sense of or experience of intimacy we can have just by sharing normal life with someone. And I've really experienced that. I've kind of things like just doing the washing up at someone's house while they put their kids to bed. It's an oddly kind of intimate experience. You just feel such part of the family. It's just, there are multiple houses where I can turn up and just help myself to whatever I want in the kitchen. And that peculiarly is a really kind of intimate thing. It's domestic intimacy in the sense of household, home, sharing of life together. And I think it's a form of intimacy we can really easily overlook. But for me in my life, it's been one that's been really, really precious, a way that I really do feel, that tangible experience of love that we're talking about.
Yeah, same for me as well. Just those different kinds of intimacy and different ways of doing friendship and doing intimacy with people that I've really learned to value. So, for example, there are some forms of relationship that I've very deliberately and intentionally cultivated, and we've done that in quite a structured way. So, I've got a prayer triplet at the moment, or I had a group of 3 other women where I used to live, we'd meet every few weeks and just have these conversations about what is God doing in your life and what are you struggling with, and being incredibly honest about various struggles and things. and being able to pray for each other and being able to ask hard questions of each other as well. And the group where I used to live, we'd known each other like for years. We'd grown up in the same youth group. We were all in our early 20s at the time, and so we knew each other. But just that intentionality and that structure that we brought shaped a different kind of intimacy that we were then able to have, and that we're still benefiting from now, even though we all now live in different places. So as Andrew, I think, said earlier, there's that kind of intimacy that has helped me to know that I am known and know that I am loved within those relationships, but also that has helped me in my relationship with God and in my walk with him. There have been some really valuable discipleship moments that have come out of those friendships and relationships as well. So yeah, all different ways and different kinds of intimacy. We're going to take a quick break, and then we will come back and talk to some more of the practicalities of how we can be building these intimate relationships.
Hello, this is Ed. If you're enjoying this podcast, you might enjoy hearing from the Living Out team in a more extended format, actually in person. And there are plenty of opportunities for you to do that in the coming weeks. So we'll be spending an afternoon in Inverness, I'm in Scotland, on Saturday the 1st of March, a morning in Southern Coalfield on Saturday the 22nd of March, and an evening in Leamington Spa on Tuesday the 25th of March. If you can't make any of these, do join us though online on Thursday the 20th of March for our webinar all about teaching on sexuality in local churches. For details of all those events and the webinar, head to the events page on the Living Out website.
So intimacy in friendship is great, it is important, but it's not always easy, as is the case for most relationships in life. So what are some of the ways, I guess, that this could go wrong? What things should we be aware of as we're seeking to build a greater intimacy in our friendships?
I think with any relationship, there is risk and things can go wrong. But I think within the church, we have become so fearful of things going wrong in friendships that we have created a relational deficit. We don't teach on how to form healthy friendship because we go, oh no, if a girl is friends with a guy, or oh no, now same sex, how do we do friendship? This is all going to go wrong. You're all just going to end up sleeping with each other. And we all are just scared of that happening. And so friendships don't happen. Or if there are close friendships, people look at them and go, is this okay? Like, is this too, whatever. So of course, friendships can become too exclusive. And I experienced that in my life where I've had friends where then when they've made another friend, I feel jealous. And I'm like, why do I feel jealous? Because they're my friend. And it's really nothing more than that. But that's shown in my heart, actually, probably there's a bit of a dependency there that isn't helpful. And actually our friendships shouldn't necessarily be exclusive in that way. They should be open to more people being added to the friendship and that being a good thing. So I think it can go wrong in that way. And obviously we would know a lot of the things that could go potentially wrong. But I think we shouldn't let those fears stop us from forming friendships and having friendships where we can have those hard conversations and have good conflict and healthy conflict, because I think that creates intimacy as well. I know I've had friends where I felt disappointed in the friendship, and I can have high expectations on friends because I feel like I've got a vision of what friendship could be and can often feel let down. And so when I've had those conversations with friends, actually that's created a deeper intimacy because I've been able to voice like, this is challenging or this is hard. And they've gone, well, actually, this is challenging. This is hard for me. Oh, great. I feel closest to you because I feel like I really know you now because we've been able to be totally honest. So that's me.
I think it's really helpful. And I agree. I think we often panic about friendship and respond badly. And I sometimes summarise that if we go to the two extremes, either go to fear, as you've talked about, and we kind of therefore avoid friendship, don't do it, or we can go to folly, actually not notice the risks and just be really unwise. And the risk is to go to one of these two extremes when actually the middle path is wisdom. And so what is it like to be wise in cultivating intimate friendships, which are aware of the risks and therefore take wise steps to avoid them, but don't kind of get so afraid that we don't do it at all, but also don't ignore the risk, so it's unwise. And so I think there's things like, actually, the risk of sexual sin emerging, say, or sexual attraction emerging in a helpful way. It means actually we don't totally avoid certain relationships, friendships, but we do have high honesty with ourselves and with other people. And so I think I've shared in this podcast before, at any one time, my closest friends will usually know the guys in my life who I think actually I need to be careful at that particular season of how I'm engaging them, when I'm engaging with them, and there's kind of high honesty. So I'm not ending friendships with other people where there's a risk like I'm attracted to them, but I'm being very honest with myself about what's going on in my heart and mind, and honest with other people. I remember one day just saying to a friend, I just need to tell you I hugged this person and I think that was badly motivated. And just actually I need to be honest with myself about that and honest with them. And I didn't need to therefore never talk to that person again or avoid them completely, but I needed to be wise about how I interacted to protect myself and protect them in a way. So I think for me, it's always asking that question, what does wisdom look like in navigating what we do want, which is meaningful, intimate friendships?
That's great, Andrew. And I think that's incredibly humble, because I imagine lots of people just imagining doing that in their own lives, in sharing with someone else, right? This is what's happened in that moment of that hug, would find just the thought of that deeply uncomfortable, because we're such private people, especially British people, like we're so private. The thought of sharing that speaks to your depth of friendship, that you have people in your life that you're able to do that with. And I'm sure that took years to form, and decisions to be like, I am going to share vulnerably, even if they don't, I'm going to go first. I'm sure that was challenging.
Yeah, it has to be a deliberate choice, doesn't it? And I always think you can't cultivate deep, meaningful intimacy and friendship if you're not prepared to go through the awkwardness, not prepared to be honest to the level of awkwardness. And probably when you feel more awkward sharing than they feel hearing. Actually, often it's more the issue. But yeah, that doesn't happen just by not doing it. It happens by deliberate choice and having to be prepared for that. But actually, in a context of a relationship where there is genuine love and commitment, there is that friendship, intimacy, it's a safe place then, to be honest, as well. So you kind of cultivate that trust of each other to then be able to share in that way.
That is great. We're starting to get there already, but I will ask the question overtly. What can we do to help cultivate these friendships? How can we get intimacy right?
I think in cultivating friendship, for me, it's been time. Like, you just need time with people. It needs to be something that, if you want friendships, it needs to be a priority. And you can't expect that on the first hangout with someone, or the second or the third or the fourth, they're going to feel like the best friend in the world. There are some people that you automatically click with, but I know for some of my good friends, actually, we didn't like click straight away, but it was just in time and investment. And something that I found helpful as well is creating space for memories. So often I can get caught in a trap of just like catching up with people over coffee, just being like, let's go for coffee, let's go for coffee, let's just do this. And then you're like telling each other about your lives, but you're not actually living life together. And there's something in the shared experience, like we spoke about earlier, the inviting into the home, but not just in the home, but like, let's do this thing and go do this activity or go away or like whatever it is. I think there's a beauty in making memories and living life with people, not just talking about your separate worlds.
That's profound. Yes. I feel like a light bulb has just gone on in my head about one of my friendships that I've been struggling with. That's wonderful, Katherine. Thank you. It's so true, isn't it? It's so easy, actually, to talk about life and not actually do life together. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that's not just a female problem, because I feel like, no, I guess guys do would do that as well, not to stereotype, but yeah, I guess I've always viewed that as a female thing, but yeah.
That's really good. And I totally agree. There was stuff you're saying just about time, and I think that links the thing of being deliberate. I think that just the deliberateness is needed to cultivate meaningful friendship, and for me that's meant often having to have the deliberate conversations about what meaningful friendship looks like, actually. And I often point out, it's funny how we talk a lot about the importance of communication in marriage, and we never say the same about friendship, but it is actually. All my closest friendships, where there's genuine loving intimacy there, have required sometimes conversations, and sometimes difficult conversations, about how the friendship works and about how we can best love one another and what's needed on kind of both sides, in a sense, actually. I think way back now, actually, when I lived up north, my close friends, and just us talking about how physical touch is a really big deal for me. Kind of one of the primary ways, I guess, I feel loved and stuff. And he's totally not wired that way. But we had a conversation. I don't think I requested anything specifically, but we were just talking about it. And from that point onward, he would always make the effort. I didn't drive at the time. He'd drop me home. He'd always make the effort to park up, take his seatbelt off, give me a proper hug before I left, which I knew in a sense was not his instinct at all. And, he wouldn't feel the need to bother or want to do that particular out, but he made such a deliberate effort because of that, but because we'd had the conversation. And then he loved to talk about his work, and I did not find his work interesting in the slightest. He's still a good friend, and I still don't, but one of the ways I seek to really love him is by really paying attention when he talks about his work, really trying to take an interest, remember things, asking about it, because I know he feels loved and valued by me when he gets to talk in that way. And that's come from both explicitly talking about what we need, but also just getting to know each other well, and then making deliberate decisions of, I do love you, and therefore these are the steps I'm going to take to help you experience that in the friendship.
Yeah, I'd echo exactly that. My closest friendships are the ones where we've had conversations about our friendship and how we relate to each other and how we communicate and the ways that we experience love. So Andrew, me and the friend I'm thinking of are kind of the other way around from you and your friend, where she is very big on physical touch, and she's very big on words of affirmation. If you know the 5 love languages, those are her 2 top ones. And I'm not big on physical touch. I can do words, but touch not so much. But I've had to just learn how to be more tactile with her, and how to do that in a way that is, as we talked about before, that is kind of wise and helpful. Just the culture that we live in and the ways that it talks about intimacy and like friendship can get confusing when that's a factor, and also when same-sex attraction is involved. So just being wise about how we do physical intimacy, but not kind of going, oh, I can't possibly engage in physical intimacy with another woman because I'm same-sex attracted. Like that would be denying me something, but also denying this friend something. So talking about that and how we can do it well. And then exactly the same in reverse, where I'm more quality time. And so when she listens to me really well and takes time to kind of repeat things back to me and ask me questions, and a week later she'll say something that I said to her, I went, oh, you were listening to me. She says, of course I was. Knowing how people feel loved can be really valuable, and actually just asking the question, like, how do you receive love? Like, when have you felt most loved by me, or when have you felt least loved by me? Just really draws out some helpful things. So that can be a really good conversation to have. I also like Drew Hunter's book, Made for Friendship. He's got a chapter on cultivating friendship. And one of the things he says in there, his best advice for cultivating friendship is to be the kind of friend that you want to have. So that might be a helpful read for people as well, just thinking about what is it you want in a friend, and in a friendship, and how can you become that in order to experience it, I think.
That's going to say to people, the way to develop deep, meaningful friendships, in the same way the way to truly experience church as family, is not to sit around waiting for someone to be family for you or to be a friend, but to think, how can I be the best friend for someone? How can I best be family with someone else? And then see how God blesses and grows that. And I think in my experience, that has been a really powerful thing God has used.
I think also, like, bringing it to God in prayer as well. Like, I know I've had seasons in my life where I've felt like, oh man, like friendship's really hard, and I feel like I'm really trying, and I just feel like people don't really want to be my friend or aren't showing up in the way that I would long for, or whatever. And actually going to, it sounds cheesy, but my best friend in Jesus, and talking to God about that, and actually God wants to provide relationally for us. And I've experienced a closeness in friendship with God in those seasons where I felt lonely, and then have watched God provide in surprising ways. And I've probably seen, like, develop friendships with people I've maybe overlooked in the past.
I think that's so important, isn't it? We do want to prioritize friendship. Like, it's so important, and it takes work and it takes effort and it's hard, and we need to prioritize it, but we don't want to idolize friendship. We do want to know that our best friend is Jesus, and ultimately he's the one that we need and he is the one that we go to. But then also, he can help us with the difficulties of our friendships and our relationships in this life. So helpful. One last question for you that may be an impossible one to answer, but we'll see what happens. Just thinking about differences between men and women. Again, we're going to have to generalize. Generalizations are usually wrong, but also usually helpful. So Between men and women, have you observed any differences in how we do intimacy in friendship?
Well, I am not a man, so I can't really compare to male intimacy, obviously. But I have noticed a few things about girls, and like you said, Ashley, stereotype, generalization, all of that, not for everyone, blah 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 blah. But something I've noticed in my personal friendship with girls is I think the cultural stereotype is that girls are better at friendship, we're better at intimacy in that sense. Like girls will chat loads, will want to hang out loads, guys won't have deep conversations. The stereotype of the if a married couple, husband comes home, how's this going in your friend's life? I don't know. All we spoke about was football, or else the girls know everything that's going on in the girl's life. So that's the stereotype. But something that I've noticed in some of my female friendships is for girls, it's very easy to form friendships around a mutual dislike of someone. So you can form a friendship around we find this person annoying or we find this. And then when you meet up, all you talk about is like that person and the annoying thing that they did and that thing that you found frustrating. That might be a male dynamic as well, but I've particularly seen it in girls. And I was doing a youth seminar a few months back about friendship, and these girls came up afterwards and said, we've realized like all we do is talk about other people and we don't know what we're going to talk about if we don't talk about other people. So like what should we talk about? And I was like, I can't tell you what to talk about. Get a life, get some hobbies. But like set yourself a goal. Try and not talk about another person for a week and see how it goes and see what conversations flow. But I think for lots of girls that is a huge issue in our friendships. We can talk about other people and not actually talk about ourselves, and that feels like intimacy, but it's a false intimacy.
It's really interesting. I think, guys, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? When we keep saying we can make the caveat of its stereotypes. I think there is truth to the fact that a lot of guys aren't good at talking deeply, sharing openly. I think it doesn't come naturally to a lot of guys, and I think it's not done culturally. And so, but then my experience as actually a guy who butts the trend a bit and overshares probably actually, and loves to kind of go deep and ask deep questions and stuff. If guys are really keen to open up when they're given the chance. And often actually I had a few guys say to me just that the way we do friendship and we talk about deeply and stuff just isn't how they've ever experienced friendship before, but that it's really good and meaningful for them. And so my challenge to guys, I guess, would be actually to let's get good at actually sharing a bit vulnerably sometimes, opening up a bit. Let's get good at taking the time to actually ask the questions of our mates and to gently push sometimes as well, actually, to push their friend to go a bit deeper in sharing. And I also think there is truth in the stereotype that for a lot of guys, they will do that opening up and sharing a lot better when they are side by side rather than face to face. People sometimes say often females find face to face friendship easier, guys side by side, as in if you're doing something side by side and talking as you do it, or even actually I think just walking, getting out and being side by side rather than sitting opposite each other over a coffee table or a sofa, I think actually does make quite a difference. And so I think combining those two things actually of getting out and about, doing something together, but while you're doing that, actually taking the time to be deliberate about talking and being open can really help male friendship.
I'm very sad to say that's all we have time for today. This has been such a good, fun, helpful conversation. So thank you both. We'll put all of the resources in the show notes for you who are listening. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it as enjoyable as I have. Do subscribe to our podcast if you enjoyed it, share it, rate it so that other people can hear about it. And come back in a couple of weeks for our next episode, where you're going to hear some of the Living Out team having a chat with our actual real life friends about some of the things we've covered so far in this series. So tune in for that. We'll see you then. Bye for now.